ado, let us have here Miss Jillian Ian Ross for the reading of the class prophecy. A round of applause, please.
They say that the future is written in the choices we make today. That every dream we dare to hold becomes a quiet promise of who we are meant to be. We stand here tonight as students, full of laughter, memories, and unfinished stories. But somewhere ahead of us lies a version of our lives we have yet to meet. A future where dreams take shape, where names become titles, and where ordinary moments turn into extraordinary journeys. Good evening to everyone present, especially to my fellow juniors. I am Jillian Ian Rojas, and tonight, allow me to take you beyond this moment as I share with you a glimpse of what we may one day become, our class prophecy. It was March 24, 2035, exactly 8:15 in the morning at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. The place was busy, flights being called, people rushing, and luggage rolling across the floor. As for me, I had just landed from an Air Force mission. Yes, Jillian Ian Rojas, finally part of the Air Force. And I was expecting a normal, peaceful day. But the first thing that welcomed me wasn't silence. It was a loud police siren somewhere nearby. I paused for a moment, confused. And that's when I realized this day was about to be anything but normal. I turned toward the sound of the siren, slightly alarmed. Not exactly the peaceful morning I was hoping for. A police car pulled up near the entrance, lights flashing, people instinctively stepping aside. For a split second, I froze. Wait, did I do something wrong? I mentally ran through everything. Passport? Check. ID? Check. Attitude? Questionable, but still. Then the police car door opened. Out stepped a familiar figure, confident, composed, and somehow even more intimidating than before. Charay Venus Boga. As in, Venus? She removed her shades and looked straight at me. Uy, Jill, ikaw Monday na, she said, raising an eyebrow. I let out a nervous laugh. I thought I was in trouble. Turns out it was just a routine response. But of course, with Venus now part of the PNP, even a normal day looked intense. She carried herself with authority, but she was still the same Venus we knew. Strong, fearless, and slightly scary in the best way. We caught up for a bit, standing right there by the airport entrance, like it was the most casual thing in the world. We caught up briefly before she was called back. As she left, she reminded me to stay out of trouble. I told her I'd try, but no guarantees though. She shook her head, got back into the car, and just like that, sirens fading into the distance. My day has officially started. Still a little shaken and starting to feel a cold coming up, I decided to stop by a nearby hospital for medicine. Just medicine, I told myself. Just medicine, okay? I told myself. Nothing else. But of course, nothing that day was ever just anything. As I entered, I noticed a familiar face near the counter, busy assisting a patient with calm confidence. I walked a little closer. No way. Chara China Gamba. Now working as a nurse, she moved with such ease and care as if the role had always been meant for her. She noticed me almost instantly, and within seconds, we were laughing like we were back in school again. We talked for a bit, catching up in between her duties. She gave me the medicine, and then almost casually, she mentioned that someone was in the building. An old friend, a doctor. She told me to go visit. Curious, and honestly needing a proper check, I made my way to one of the offices. I knocked slightly and then stepped in. And there she was, Perin Sophia Dara. back to familiarity. We talked for a while, catching up on life, responsibilities, and how far things have come. Despite everything, she still carried the same warmth, only now it was saving lives. Then, as if the universe had been listening to us, an alarm suddenly echoed throughout the building. Code red, code red. A fire incident had just been reported, and one of the patients needed urgent medical attention. Pia's entire expression shifted. She stood up immediately, all focus and urgency, and without another word, we rushed toward the emergency room. When we arrived, we were met with chaos, nurses moving quickly, stretchers being wheeled in, voices calling out instructions. And right there in the middle of it all stood one of the firefighters responding to the incident, a familiar one, Zyron Carl Kahade. I blinked in disbelief. Zyron? Our old classmate had become one of the very people helping save lives in the middle of the emergency. For a second, I just stared, completely stunned. But somehow, even in all that intensity, he was still the same Zyron we knew, steady, dependable, and quietly cared. We managed to catch up for a brief moment before Pia quickly asked him for details about the incident and the patient's condition. After that, she was off again, straight into the ER. So while waiting for Pia, I decided to explore the hospital a little. At that point, my stomach had already begun protesting, so I figured the cafeteria would be a good place to start. I was looking around the hallway, trying to figure out where to go, when suddenly, bam, I bumped straight into someone. For one horrifying second, I could already picture myself slamming face first onto the floor in the most embarrassing way possible. But before I could even brace for impact, a hand caught me. I froze, and when I slowly looked up, I nearly stopped breathing. Ezra J. Gamma! He was the nurse I had bumped into, and somehow he was now holding me mid-fall like something straight out of a scene I absolutely did not prepare for. He chuckled and said, "Bukakan ng kay Kajit." I immediately tried to fix my posture, stumbling a little as I stood properly. "Sorry, Nagod," I said, trying to recover. I was trying to bulk for training. He laughed, and just like that, everything felt easy again. Familiar, natural. We caught up for a while, and I told him I had been trying to find the cafeteria, but clearly wasn't doing a good job. He offered to walk with me, saying he was also on his break. So we went together, talking, laughing, and catching up like no time had passed at all. Somewhere in the middle of all that conversation, I realized something. I really missed him. His energy, his humor, that same charismatic personality that somehow always made everything feel lighter. At one point, I mentioned that Pia was currently in an operation and told him that Shara was also working in the same hospital. That's when he casually said something that made me smile. Apparently, the three of them eat lunch together almost every day. And hearing that, for some reason, made me happier than I expected, because we used to do that before as a class. Some things really do the same. After a while, we said our goodbyes, and I made my way back toward the ER. By then, Pia had just finished the operation. When I finally caught up to her outside, we looked at each other for a moment, and without even saying it, we both realized the same thing. We were tired, so we decided, why not take a break? A massage sounded perfect. We headed to a well-known helotherapy place, one that had been apparently gaining a lot of attention worldwide. As soon as we stepped inside, something felt familiar. Then we saw her, Ruth Ann Virenyo. Not just working there, running it, the CEO of her family business. For a second, she just stared at us, processed. Then her face lit up. "Pia, Jill," she shouted. The kind of reaction you can't fake. She was genuinely shocked and happy. The three of us ended up talking non-stop, laughing about old memories, sharing how life had been, and realizing that somehow, despite everything, we still fit the same way we used to, because some things don't change. Later that day, I had to head back for another flight. This time, I sat down quietly, expecting things to finally calm down. Then the announcement came. passengers, this is your pilot speaking. This is Captain John Rasley and Dyer, and we are now preparing for takeoff. I froze. No way! I looked up slowly just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Rasley, Pilot Rasley. And not just him, a second voice followed. This is also the first officer, Prince Sebastian Radwal, on board. Seb! Seb was co-piloting with Rasley. I couldn't help but smile. Some people really do reach impossible heights and go even higher. Then the guy sitting beside me chuckled and said, "Didn't expect that, huh?" I turned toward him. Attorney Gerard Sam Duguno. In a suit, calm, composed, Jed? He laughed and said the trip was planned. I asked, "With Rusty?" And he nodded and said they needed a break from their wives. As we talked, I noticed something in his hands, a phone, his daughter's. He smiled softly and said, "Life's different now." I teased him about being a lawyer and a family man. But of course, it wasn't a surprise. He also mentioned that he had just come from his daughter's appointment with a pediatrician named Blair Nayuri Borja. Dr. Yuri. Hearing her name brought a smile to my face. She had always been caring, gentle, the kind of person you could trust without question. And now, she had turned that into something real, taking care of children, just like we all imagined she would. I teased him a bit, recalling how we used to joke around, especially about Yumi and Rasley. Some things really never leave high school. After landing, I waited the jet near the arrival area. Soon, Rasley and Seth walked out like they were in a fashion magazine. Both of them paused in surprise when they saw us. Clearly, wasn't expecting this kind of reunion. Seth had to leave shortly after though, as he had an Olympic swimming competition to attend to. Of course he did. Even during his high school years, he has already competed nationally and is only aiming higher. But before we parted, Rasley suggested we go grab coffee. The three of us sat in a cafe, catching up like time hadn't passed. While we were talking, something on a nearby poster caught my attention. A movie poster. And there he was, Prince Dylan Carlo Aragón, an actor of a rising movie. I pointed. Jed and Rasley smirked. Dylan, now stepping into the spotlight, he had always been expressive, dramatic, creative, never afraid to stand out. Back then it was jokes, performances, random moments in class. Now he's channeling all that energy into something bigger. Proof that creativity always finds its way. While we were laughing, I nudged Jed and said, "So, how's Johan?" He choked on his drink. Rasley burst out laughing. Jed shook his head, trying to recover, and said, "Zayel Johan Payton, animator now, working on big projects. I think she's doing great." I smirked because I knew that. I pointed at another screen, an animated film playing. I shared how I was planning to watch one of her films at the cinema that day, but tickets are always sold out. So it looks like she's doing more than great. It's true, Johan was a rising animator. After catching up and saying our goodbyes, I continued walking on the way to our airbase, still smiling. Then suddenly, crack. My phone slipped out of my hand. I stared at it. Seriously? Still clumsy, some things never change. I sighed and entered a nearby tech store. And there she was, Ayesa Marie Canales, an IT specialist. Not just working there, she was running the place as CEO Ayesa. She looked up and said, "Jill?" I hung up my broken phone and asked if there was a discount for old classmates. Ayesa has always been one with tech, so she quickly understood the situation. After she was able to skillfully fix my phone. Thank goodness. Afterwards, we said our goodbyes. As I stepped outside later that evening, I checked my phone, and the first thing that popped up was an Instagram story. Brianna Ashley Duhan. She was with her friends, showcasing a beautifully designed hotel space, clean, elegant, and thoughtfully put together. Of course, Bri had always had an eye for detail, for creating spaces that felt right. Now, she was turning that into something real, blending creativity, design, structure, and creativity. I smiled and sent her a message, asking about the place, because at that point I realized I might need somewhere to stay for the night before I report to our airbase. And as I paused for a moment, looking around, thinking about everything that happened that day, it finally hit me. Everywhere I went, every place I stepped into, I didn't just see success. I saw growth. I saw dreams, once small, uncertain, and distant, now real, now lived. And maybe this wasn't just a random day. Maybe it was a reminder that no matter how far we go, how much we change, or how different our lives become, we will always carry a part of where we started, of who we started with. And as I look towards the fading horizon, I realized our class isn't just stepping into the future, we're shaping it together. Thank you.